like from one historian to another. How are you, David Feldman?
Yeah, I'm not going to make you cry.
Yeah, don't make me cry.
No. But here's the thing, and I love Marty. I've known Marty for a long time. Marty, you talk baseball for a living. Nobody cares how hard it is. You're fine. You know what I'm saying? You're not breaking a sweat, Marty. You're all right.
We're not getting a sunburn and we're not getting calluses.
That's what I'm. There's no heavy lifting.
Where are you today, by the way? What are you doing? What is your world? Are you Pac-12? Are you NBA? What are you doing today?
I am at the Turner Broadcasting Studios in Atlanta, getting ready to do the TBS Tuesday night game of the week tomorrow. They have the Red Sox versus the Braves. So it's a lot of buzz going on here because obviously the Warriors are on TNT tonight. So Shaq and Charles and Kenny, they're all walking around the halls here somewhere.
If people don't know, it's amazing. You fly out to Atlanta, no matter where the game is, you fly out to Atlanta once a week to do this game.
Yeah. It's, I'd rather be at the ballpark, but this is the new reality that we have now. We do a lot of remote productions. And so every week, no matter where the Tuesday night game is, I'm in Atlanta. I'm in the Atlanta studios. I'm starting to recognize the flight attendants on the planes, the TSA agents. They're all giving me a big hi. It's been a lot of fun. I have no idea what time it is, but other than that, it's great.
We've been talking about Vida Blue, and we'll get into Vida, but it's something that I've been addressing because I'm like Old Man River when talking about pitching, but Vida helps me explain this. It's like historical figures. There's certain things that they did that make them historical figures, right? And there's certain things that lead to other things. Like people want to tell you wins don't matter, but now I start looking at a guy like Vida, and we look at innings pitched. We look at strikeouts. Like to become an all-time great, you've got to do things. You've got to have this volume, which all of that helps lead to wins, but we'll stay away from wins. And speaking of all the different sports that you've done for all these different years, I've been saying, every game has an object, whether it's a basketball, it's a baseball, it's a football, it's a hockey puck. The stars are the guys that handle the object. They're the stars. When we're watching the Warrior game, the guys who have the ball the most, Steph Curry, LeBron James, they're the stars, right? We see it in football. The quarterbacks handling the football to the running back, to the wide receivers. It's the stars. We're getting to a point in baseball where the guy that handles the ball, it's now just an assembly line of no-name relievers. And to me, when we look at, how we sell the game, how we view the game, how people love the game, people from all around the country wanted to see this fireballer, this young left-hander. His name's Vida Blue, just the name alone and the stats. I want to pay my money to go watch Vida Blue pitch. I don't care if my team's the Tigers or it's the Twins or it's the Yankees or whatever. Vida Blue put butts in the seats on the road because he was a starting pitcher. I'm afraid for baseball. This young generation like Cody, I don't think they get it. Like the guy who handles the ball should be important. And somehow baseball, we're historically with starters, we don't even really have star closers anymore. It's like, baseball's changed so much. We're not going to 20 years from now. Will we have like a Vida Blue?
No. And what worries me is what we saw last week with Mason Miller, not the fact that he got pulled with a no-hitter after 7 innings. That offended me. I understand why, because that's the world we live in now, the way we protect these players. But this is what kind of bothered me is Mason Miller thought he was coming out after 6. He didn't even think he was going to get the 7th because that's how we are teaching starting pitchers now. We are not teaching starting pitchers to go 9 innings. Starting pitchers have this imaginary number of 100, right? That was just sort of plucked out of, that's going to be the magic number, 100. And if you get to 100 pitches, well, then you're going to be done. And that's the mindset pitchers are being brought up in. And that's like okay now. For me, that's not okay. If you're the starting pitcher, if you were a Vida Blue or a Dave Stewart or a Tim Hudson, you were going to go 9 innings because that's your job. You were to start the game and you end the game. That's what you're trying to do, and that's your mindset. And you started to see a change over the last 20, 25 years where, we got to go to the bullpen. We only got 100 pitches. I don't like that mindset. And that's, I didn't like Mason Miller coming out. And this is maybe a once in a lifetime opportunity to throw a no-hitter as a rookie. That's something Vida Blue did, right? In 1970, he threw a no-hitter in September. You don't know if he's going to get that chance again. It could be a special evening. But more concerning to me was his mindset was like, yeah, I thought I was coming out after 6. I just can't. That's the type of thinking that I can't get behind.
You grew up a kid in Oakland. Your favorite team was the Oakland Athletics. You're a baseball guy. No offense to the other teams in the Bay Area, but you're a baseball guy. Even though NBA comes around, you act like you're an NBA guy. I know you're a baseball guy. Vida Blue, when you're a little kid, Vida Blue's a star.
Vida Blue, first it's just the name, Vida Blue. I mean, that's the name as a kid you're just going to grab onto. It's just such a unique name, Vida Blue. And then you hear the story about him. For me, I was too young to remember 71, but by the time I'm a baseball fan in 73, 74, I've heard about 71. And I heard about how dominating it was. And I've seen the highlights from the All-Star game at Tiger Stadium and the Blue Blazer and the magazine covers and everything that Vida brought. The first game that I remember going to as a fan, Bat Day in 1973, Vida Blue pitched. And you saw this guy on the mound. He looked larger than life. He had the high stirrups. He looked taller than he was, the Blue Blazer. He was magical. And he was such a good pitcher. And for a kid in the 70s, I mean, the name, the success, winning the championships, Vida Blue was a whole package for a baseball fan in the 70s.
No doubt about it. And, just what was that like? You're growing up an A's fan. Your team's in the World Series every single year. You've got stars. I mean, think about Reggie Jackson. Think about Sal Bando was a great player. I mean, we just had Joe Rudy on. He's a 3-time World Series champion. He's an all-star. Gene Tennis is like a King Kong in the World Series. Raleigh Fingers is doing things I wish we appreciated more. It was truly amazing. Catfish Hunter, Ken Holtzman, you go on and on and on. What was that like as a kid? You had like a utopia of baseball.
Yeah. I think it's what a lot of people, Warrior fans who are growing up now are going through, right? They think every year is going to be Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green.
Niner fans in the 80s.
It's Joe Montana. It's Jerry Rice. Giant fans in the early part of this. It's Buster Posey. It's Tim Lincecum. It's Matt Cain. They don't know any better. And as a kid in the 70s, you're like, well, this happens every year. But guess what? Eventually it changes. And I think what's interesting about Vida Blue is Vida Blue was really the last remaining guy. He pitched for the 1977 A's. Okay, everybody was gone after 76. So what happened? Why is Vida still there in 1977? Everybody was a free agent. They left because Vida got screwed once again by Charlie Finley, right? In 1976, which is supposed to be the walk year for these free agents, Burkamp and Harris and Joe Rudy and Sal Bando, they're going to play out their contract. The reverse clause was going to be eliminated, and they were going to be free agents. Somehow, Charlie Finley convinced Vida Blue to sign a 3-year contract in 1976. A 3-year contract. And Vida was asked, why would you do that? You don't even like the man, Charlie Finley. He said, well, he made me a promise he wouldn't trade me, and I like being in Oakland. He goes, Vida Blue said, I like being in Oakland. I like it here. And he promised not to trade me. So what did Charlie Finley do the night that Vida Blue signed this contract? He tried to sell him to the New York Yankees that night. And the reason why the Yankees wanted guaranteed that they were getting Vida Blue for that year and 2 more. And it also, so this sort of starts to sound familiar. It was going to lower the worth of the Oakland A's. The A's were being evaluated at about a $12 million worth. Charlie Finley's trying to sell the team to Marvin Davis in Denver, the Denver Oilmen. You get rid of Vida Blue in his contract, the worth of the A's goes down to $10 million, and it makes it more sellable. Does this all sound a little familiar? So Vida Blue does not get sold to the Yankees because Bowie Kuhn puts the kibosh on that. Best interest of baseball was his move. So now here's Vida playing the 77 season for the A's, a bad A's team. We go into 78. Vida's still a member of the A's. Charlie Finley tries to sell him to the Cincinnati Reds. he's gonna trade him for Dave Revering, who was a minor leaguer, eventually did come to the A's for Dick Vare, but he's going to try it again. And once again, Charlie Bowie Kuhn says, nope, best interest of baseball, not allowing this trade. Gratefully, finally, Charlie Finley was able to work out a trade with the San Francisco Giants, a multiplayer deal where it's Vida Blue and one other player going to the Giants. The A's get a whole dugout full of players back from the Giants. And they asked Vida, what does it feel like to finally be traded? And quoting the great Martin Luther King Jr., he says, free at last, free at last. Thank God I'm free at last. But Charlie and Vida and as a kid, right, Vida's your guy, and they keep trying to get rid of him. And you couldn't understand why you're trying to get rid of Vida Blue. Luckily, we had him for one extra year.
So we now look at starting pitchers a little different. We give a lot more leeway with certain numbers, and you start to look at Vida Blue's numbers, knowing that Charlie Finley, as you just mentioned, messed with Vida's career. Obviously in 72, he's a young man at the height of his powers. I think of the 1 year he suspended, what was that, 84? Was it 84?
Yeah, he missed the 84 season.
Right? So, I mean, if you don't have this disruption of time, wasn't because of Tommy John surgery, wasn't because of injuries, if you didn't have this disruption of time in his career, would he have a plaque in Cooperstown?
He would have gotten a lot more support, definitely, if he had, a 1972 season. He still made 23 starts in 72, but he went 6-10, and he left everybody with a bad taste in their mouth, right? He was going to go work for the plumbing company. He's a plumbing executive there. It just left a bad taste. Still, it comes back in 73 with a 21 season, 22 wins in 75, 18-game winner in 76, goes to the Giants, wins 18 games, leads a team that was really not thought of to a third-place finish, and they're only 6 games behind the Dodgers in 78 with the Giants. You guys talked about his all-star appearances. I mean, he started the game for both leagues. Yeah, he had a chance to be a Hall of Fame pitcher. If he doesn't lose that 72 type of season, if he doesn't lose 84, he would have had a chance. He would have had numbers that were similar to Catfish Hunter. And again, the star power that he would have had, because he was Vida Blue. He definitely would have been the star. And, the other thing that gets me, and they talk about his postseason career, and they say, well, he wasn't that good in the postseason. But the thing is, he had 3 of the biggest postseason games during that A's run. Game 5 in 72 in the ALCS. Blue Moon Odom only goes the first 5. So Vida finishes the final 4 innings of that game, shutout style, saving a 1-run lead, saving the game. I mean, the A's go to the World Series because Vida Blue, those 4 shutout innings. Okay, now post-game, he does the choke symbol to Blue Moon Odom. They get in a fight in the clubhouse, but that's swinging A's. What are you going to do? Those things happen.
Par for the course.
But then, and then game 1 of 72, he comes out of the bullpen and gets the save in game 1, another 1-run game. So 2 huge saves. And then, of course, the ALCS game in 73 where he throws a shutout. Just big moments. So he gets a little knock on his postseason career, but it's better than people think. He had a couple bad starts, game 6 and 72 in the World Series after being in the bullpen for the whole postseason. All of a sudden, we're going to start him in game 6, and it was terrible. Other than that, he was actually a very good postseason pitcher and a spectacular one when they needed him most in 72.
A lot of people look back at that era of baseball and you say, it can never happen again. Well, they're kind of right, because when you look at, like, you can even talk about the Big Red Machine, or you look at the A's. I mean, these A's were all brought up together. They weren't guys that were traded for. They weren't guys. I mean, you're talking about draft picks from Kansas City coming to Oakland. These guys came up together. So as crazy and nutty as Charlie Finley was, he built this team. Remember, Rick Monday could have been a part of this, obviously traded for Holtzman. But, I mean, it's pretty amazing. All the draft picks, all the signings, they just worked. Now, eventually they would all become very expensive, but you got to give credit. These were all homegrown. This dynasty is homegrown, which is incredible. We just really don't see that today.
Not as much, but the good teams are still built this way, I believe, through the farm system and guys coming up together. Charlie Finley was a tremendous talent evaluator. For all his other eccentricities and whatever else, he knew good ball players and he knew what made a good team. And he understood when he had those core players that, a lot of them drafted when they were still in Kansas City and brings them to Oakland. And he knew he just had to fill around them. And he always was able to identify what they needed. You talk about Rick Monday. He knew they needed another starter to go with Vida and Catfish. So I'm going to give up my center fielder, my number 1 overall draft pick, to get Ken Holtzman, who's going to be a solid starter for the A's. And that worked out beautifully. Trading to get Ray Fosse, trading a young George Hendrick, an up-and-coming outfielder, a power hitter. But I needed a catcher for this team, and I'm going to make that trade. We also needed to get Dave Duncan out of here, but that's another part of the story. Then getting Billy North, to be your center fielder in 73. He was so smart that way. But that's how good teams, to me, who come up together. Talk about Mulder, Hudson, Zito, right? These are all A's draft picks. That's why I do get excited when I look down at the farm now for the A's. And you see some of the guys we saw in spring training, and you saw Denzel Clark, and you saw Zach Geloff, Soderstrom. I think you see guys who are coming up together again. I think we're seeing that next generation of guys who are coming up together, playing together, learning how to win together. And when they all come up to the big leagues together, there's going to be a familiarity with it. And I think it's going to be a big thing. I think it's going to be the next successful A's team is going to be those guys because of the fact they're all coming up together.